Hi, everyone.
Hello again. We're on page 101 of the Proclaimer's book, Education in the Divine Will. In the summer of 1958, the threat of war loomed in the Middle East. Despite the strain of international relations, Jehovah's Witnesses prepared to gather for an international convention that would further educate them in the divine will. It would also prove to be their largest convention in any one city. A peak of 253,922 delegates from 123 lands flooded into New York City's Yankee Stadium and the Polo grounds for the Divine Will International Assembly, July 27th through August the 3rd. Jehovah's Witnesses pour in by the stadium full, said New York's Daily News of July 26, 1958. 8 special trains, 500 chartered buses, and 18,000 auto pools are bringing the members, besides the 2 chartered ships and 65 chartered planes.
Gilead-trained missionaries had made known to the Society's headquarters the challenges they faced in teaching Bible truth to those not acquainted with the beliefs and doctrines of Christendom's churches. If only they could have a publication that would set forth just the true biblical teachings, yet could be easy to read and understand. To the delight of the 145,488 delegates present on Thursday afternoon, July 31, Brother Knorr announced the release of the new book, From Paradise Lost to Paradise Regained. Brother Knorr urged all to use the new book in their field ministry. He also suggested that parents would find it helpful in teaching their children Bible truths. Many parents took the suggestion to heart. Grace A. Estep, a school teacher who was raised in a small town near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, noted, "A whole generation of children have grown up fingering the Paradise Book, carrying it to the meetings with them, sharing it with their little playmates, being able to relate long before they were old enough to read a whole series of Bible stories just from the pictures."
Meaty material for advanced students of God's Word was also provided. At the conclusion of his stirring discourse, "Let Your Will Come to Pass," Brother Knorr thrilled the audience when he announced the release of a new book entitled Your Will Be Done on Earth. This new publication, containing an extensive study of the book of Daniel, educated its readers in how the divine will has been done and is now being done. Quote, "You are going to enjoy tremendously this book," unquote, declared the speaker. One wonders if that's a promise or a command. By thunderous applause, the vast audience of 175,441 expressed their delight at receiving this new instrument to deepen their appreciation of the divine will.
In his closing remarks, Brother Knorr announced further special educational programs that would benefit the worldwide organization. "The educational work is not on the decline," Knorr declared, "but rather it is on the move forward." He outlined plans for providing a 10-month training course in Brooklyn for overseers from the Society's branches all over the world. Also, in many countries around the world, there would be training courses of 1 month for traveling overseers and those having oversight in the organizations. Why all this education? We want to move to higher levels of understanding, he explained, so that we can get deeper into the thoughts of Jehovah as he has expressed them in his word. Work began immediately on the courses of study for these training programs. 7 months later, on March 9, 1959, the first class of a new school, the Kingdom Ministry School, began at South Lansing, New York, home of the Gilead School. What started there soon reached out around the world as the new school was used to train those having oversight in the congregations.
Well, I guess we should remark, first of all, upon what they boast about, this gigantic scale of assembly that happened in 1958. My so-called Aunt Ada, who we'll talk about in a minute, was one of those who attended this. She was, I don't even know if she was baptized yet at this point. She'd come over from England with us, and I remember the marveling at these numbers. 250,000 people at the New York Giants Polo grounds and the New York Yankees Yankee Stadium for one convention. Yes, this was gigantic on a scale that would not impress us again in America and Canada until Woodstock about 10 years afterwards. But the question we have to ask is there any Old Testament or New Testament precedent for these kind of assemblies? And the only thing remotely like it is an Old Testament festival, which of course is now part of the law that we have officially discarded if we're Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't keep the Sabbath, but somehow we're keeping scale these yearly assemblies. Anything like this. Well, they have done several since, but I don't think anything has broken this record. But what's it got to do with the Bible? It's got to do with publicity, for sure. They got a ton of publicity from this.
Yeah. Well, when reading this, I get the impression of, you know, when you watch movie reviews or movie promos, and it's like, experience the feeling and own it, and the same positive spin on everything.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not biblical in precedent. Is it therefore anti-biblical? Well, I can't say that. I mean, Christians do similar things and have these gigantic conferences, but it's not biblical. And I think we need to say that. So the idea of an international assembly or of an assembly on anything like this scale is Old Testament idea. It's not new. But then you've got the two books that are released. Now you know about the first one. You've made videos about it.
Yeah, and I do remember reading that, the three of us, the oldest kids, the three of us, my mother reading it to us. I do remember that.
The Paradise book.
Yeah. Paradise Lost book, yeah. But they say here, I'm thinking, well, how old are the children? Well, if I'm an example of it, they're my age or older than me, the kids that were reading this.
Because you were 2 when it was produced.
I was 58. No,
you were.
I was minus.
You were born. You were born 2 years later.
Yeah.
And your older siblings were obviously raised on this book.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was gone by the 70s. I do recall it was still around. They were still distributing it. But the point is, this quote right at the bottom of the page, Grace Estep, a school teacher, saying, a whole generation of children have grown up fingering the Paradise book.
Yeah, that's
and what follows that? Carrying it to meetings with them, sharing it with their little playmates.
Yeah, and I've heard many people talk about how this book gave them nightmares. I can't say that it gave me nightmares, but you do recall those pictures. They stay in your memory.
Sure.
And so if nothing else, they make you fearful of Armageddon all the time growing up, that this is going to happen. So, do you remember the pictures in the book?
Now, my Aunt Ada, who came up from England with us in 1957, got baptized over here. I don't know if it was at that assembly or one just after it. But she would have been in her mid to late 20s at this point.
Yeah.
And she's, as far as I know, gone now. If she's not, she's around 90, or maybe over 90. But she was a very sincere lady. And later on, 10 years later, would set me up with the Bible study, because we kept close to each other, although she wasn't really my aunt, but we called her that. Yeah. And her two daughters, were sisters before, in family, that is, extended family, before they became officially sisters when they got baptized as a witness. But she gave us that book. I don't know if it was a Christmas. No, I don't think it would have been a Christmas present. But around the time,
a present for you kids, right?
I would have been 8 or 9 when she gave it to us, and it was the only religious book we had on our shelf. And I do remember the impact of those pictures when I thumbed through it idly over the years. And it was always the one about the city collapsing and the cars going down the crevices. That picture impressed me the most.
Kind of prepped you for later when she says you should have a Bible study, and she gets someone to study with you. Right?
And she set me up for the 1975 expectation by saying, "Is it later than you think?" That was the only Awake magazine we had in the house for a long time. Is it later than you think? So the Armageddon is dead ahead scenario that was put in my head even when I was 9 or 10 years old.
Right.
And then there's the Your Will Be Done book. Well, that's been replaced by 2 other commentaries on Daniel since. This was the one that I studied, though, in the early 70s.
And the reason why they keep having to rewrite these is because they're changing. They're changing the interpretation.
Constantly.
Yeah.
This has been replaced twice, but I love the intro to the book. It says, Brother Knorr thrilled the audience when he announced the release of a new book entitled Your Will Be Done on Earth. And the repetition of the phrase, the divine will here, twice in this paragraph and once before that. But the idea that you're teaching Bible truth, you just hear that so often that you forget that, well, these books are long gone.
Yeah.
The books of Christendom are not long gone.
And much of it has to be discarded. So that, if in the last paragraph they talk about these study courses that they're offering too, and they're setting up courses. So, I mean, Christendom has had schools and courses forever.
Seminaries, universities.
Yeah. So really, if you wanted to do intense Bible study, it's available. It has been. Now they'll say that's not Bible truth. And that's why they have to do this. It's because they're reinventing the wheel because they don't like the shape of Christendom's wheel. They want a square wheel instead of a round one. And then they have to keep adjusting.
As the wheels they invent keep falling off.
Yeah, and they don't work.
Yeah. So I think we wanted to link your 2 videos, at least the first of them, right?
Yeah, there's first of 2 on the Paradise book. It's called Frightening a Generation of JW Children from a Mostly Fictional Armageddon.
Yeah. And also the Paradise Lost playlist, which is what you do with all those Paradise passages, mostly from the book of Isaiah. Where do you put them in the new understanding you have of the Bible?
What do they actually mean? I think that was one of my biggest hurdles when I left. Okay. Now I have to make sense of what all those passages are about, and reading it in context helps a lot.
But the very fact that they released these 2 books at that assembly, that biggest assembly ever in New York, is a sign of what their gospel really is. These 2 books typify the title. Your Will Be Done has to do with Armageddon dead ahead, as does the Paradise book. Yeah. You say for people who don't know anything about Christendom, well, they're not going to get Christendom's good news at all from your book. It's going to be Paradise on the other side of an Armageddon that's dead ahead.
Yeah. Focus isn't going to be on Christ.
So we'll put the Paradise Lost playlist up there for you to choose to. There's 19 videos in that, all dealing with the passages that we used to use going door to door as our carrot. See you soon.